want to start with a few disclaimers. I do own Bitcoin. It's a small percentage of my portfolio. I have biases that cause me to be biased toward Bitcoin, political, philosophical, moral, ethical, fiscal. Lots of biases that make me very, very biased toward Bitcoin. And so I just want to disclose all that. I don't recommend to anybody or anyone in particular that they invest much, if any, in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. It's going to depend on your level of understanding, your willingness and ability to take risk, all kinds of things. And so this is not a recommendation to buy anything. So again, this is, just to be really clear, this is not financial advice. So consider your personal situation. Don't invest in anything in assets like this that you can't afford to lose. So just get the disclaimers out of the way. And so just to start off, the Times, 3rd of January 2009, Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks. This was the message in the Genesis block of the Bitcoin blockchain. And it was written by its creator, Satoshi Nakamoto, during the financial crisis that was already in process. Okay, and he recognized, Satoshi, he or they, whatever, recognized that there was a problem with our monetary policy in the United States in particular. In that, in 2008 particularly, billions, trillions of dollars were being printed out of thin air to bail out banks and other institutions. And so Satoshi came up with a brilliant idea to combine multiple technologies to make a distributed, permissionless, censorship-resistant, trustless, perfectly scarce digital money that could change the way we think about money forever. Okay, so I've said a whole lot of words out there, which I will delve into in more detail shortly. But before we talk about what Bitcoin is, I think it's important for us to understand what money is. Okay, so I want to think about what money is. First of all, it's just an idea. It's a construct that people have in their heads. So money is an idea that lives in everybody's heads. It's not anything particularly physical, necessarily. It's an idea. And normally, money is the most tradable, the way it manifests itself physically, is in being the most tradable good in a community, in a society. Okay? And so some of the characteristics that are necessary or required for money to work as money, as a medium of exchange, I'm going to go through those. Portability. Portability is the ability of money to be transported through space. Okay, so you should be able to move it from one place to another. It should be divisible. So how easy is it to use a huge rock that's 50 pounds to pay for a coffee? Not very good, right? So it needs to be divisible. You need to be able to break it down into smaller units. Fungibility. So one unit should equal any other unit. If you have units that are different and one unit doesn't always equal one unit, that's not very useful. So it needs to be fungible. And so the third, it needs to be recognizable or recognizability, which means that you should be able to tell the difference between something that's real, a unit of this currency or money that's real, and a unit that's fake. So it should be counterfeit resistance or resistant. And then finally, another aspect of money that is important for if you're going to have a contender for an object or a medium of exchange that will embody the idea of money, it has to be scarce, or it has to have scarcity. All right? And so those are some of the things that embody what we would call good money. And so, again, what is Bitcoin? What is money? Think about money as a language, okay? If money is a language, it's a language of value. It's something that we use to help communicate the value of something to somebody else. And so, just like you have, language in medicine, or language in being a lawyer, or language in the financial world, you have different terms that you use to communicate truths about something, whatever it is, to help communicate ideas. Money's no different. Money is a language of value, okay? Also, money is a game, okay? And I've got some pictures here on the slides. And before we had money, we would barter, right? If I needed eggs and you had bread, and you needed eggs and I wanted bread, we could trade. That's a simple barter exchange. Well, sometimes though, what if you want a chicken and all I have are eggs? Well, you have to find a third party to come in. And you multiply that times 1 million with 1 million different products and 1 million different people, then it becomes very complicated. And so money is a technology that we've developed to help make the transactions and exchanges more easy. Okay? And so people throughout the years have used all kinds of things to fulfill that unit or fulfill that medium of exchange. In some societies they use seashells, in other societies they use gold, in other societies they use rocks or crystals. And depending on where you are and the terrain you're in, some of those mediums of exchange may be better or worse. And so money's a language, money's a game. Again, what is Bitcoin though? And here are the things that Bitcoin does, and this is why I would say that Bitcoin ticks all the boxes to be a good medium of exchange. First of all, Bitcoin is portable, it's digital. So something that's digital, how easy is it to send a text? Super easy. Send an email, super easy. It's very portable. You can send it anywhere around the world immediately almost for very low fees in Bitcoin's instance. And there are ways you can set it up to where it's free to transact it actually, but it's also divisible. There are 100 million units that one Bitcoin can be broken down into, called Satoshis. Hint, hint. For later. It's fungible. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, always, every time. All the Bitcoins are equal to each other. Now, you can number them, you can kind of code them differently, but they all equal 1 Bitcoin. It's recognizable, so it's counterfeit resistance. You can't effectively counterfeit Bitcoin. Now, I've got a Bitcoin in my pocket that's just it's just a copper coin that's got the Bitcoin symbol on it. So, but this is not worth, what, 58,000, where are we at right now? 58,600 for Bitcoin. But it is perfectly recognizable if you have the app that you can use. So you can't counterfeit it. And then also Bitcoin is perfectly scarce. So it ticks all the boxes of being a good medium of exchange or a good money. It's perfectly scarce. Now, it doesn't mean that there's all the Bitcoin that are out there or all the Bitcoin that will ever be out there. There will be more Bitcoin created, and every day 900 Bitcoins will be created. And but we know with 100% certainty that eventually there will be 21 million and there will be no more after that. And so it has perfectly known scarcity, unlike any other monetary unit that we have. Gold is mined constantly. It's mined at a rate of about 2% per year, unless in Congo they found $25 trillion worth of it. We'll see. But something like that can happen with gold. That can't happen with Bitcoin. The dollar is inflated at a rate of 15 to 20%, or in the last few years at least, per year. And that can't happen with Bitcoin. And so it has perfect scarcity, unlike any other asset, unlike any other economic measurement instrument that we've ever had before. So as a language of value, Bitcoin is a perfect measuring device. Okay, in addition to those qualities of money, of good money, Bitcoin adds some more qualities to it. It's immutable. You can't change it. Nobody can go in and change the code. Nobody can go in and change your balance without your permission. If you have a PayPal account, PayPal can go in and deduct money from it. You know, if you buy something on eBay and you pay in PayPal, PayPal can take your money back away from you and give it back to the person that bought the item. Like if you buy a PlayStation from somebody or sell a PlayStation on eBay, and they send you money for the PlayStation, and you don't send it, then PayPal can take your money back. That can't happen with Bitcoin. It's immutable. It's borderless. It's not home to any particular country. The U.S., it's not home to the U.S. It has no country of origin. It's borderless. With monetary networks and different types of currency today, there are borders. It's hard to send money across borders now. Bitcoin, not so. It's just digital. It's permissionless. You don't have to have any third-party permission to do this. So if I want to send a Bitcoin transaction, as long as I can broadcast it to the network on the internet, the transaction will go through. So it can't be stopped by any third party. It's unconfiscatable. It is reducible to a 12-word phrase that you can carry in your head, and you could sell all your goods in life in one country, memorize a 12-word phrase, walk across the border, and then have all your wealth with you from one country to another. And nobody can take it from you. I mean, they could kill you, I guess, or threaten to kill you and make you give them your passphrase. But it's unconfiscatable. Unlike if you have gold or some other object on you, it can't be taken from you. So it's unconfiscatable. And again, it has a terminal inflation rate of 0. Once there are 21 million Bitcoin, that's it. There's no other Bitcoin that will be created. Okay, in addition to it being a currency, it also carries with it its own monetary policy, okay? Every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoin that's created every day drops in half. Currently, there are about 900 Bitcoin being created every day. Up until May of last year, it was about 1,800 Bitcoin were created every day. Today, it's only 900. In 3.5 years from now, or 3 years from now, it will only be 450. Every 4 years, it gets cut in half, the amount of Bitcoin that's mined every day. Again, there are only 21 million that will ever be created. And so what we're seeing, and in the U.S. particularly, but more so in other countries, in Venezuela and Zimbabwe, we're seeing the dollar being debased. Just last week, the U.S. government, the Congress passed a $1.9 trillion stimulus bill, and everybody's getting their stimulus money right now, which is probably why Bitcoin is increasing in price right now as I speak. People are spending their money on Bitcoin. So what does that do when you increase the supply of something? If everything remains the same, the value of that thing goes down, okay? Again, you can't do that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin can't be debased. And so that's another thing that makes it different, and it offers an alternative to the current monetary policy that we have in the United States in particular, but around the world with all fiat currencies that are created by the government with nothing backing them. And so the dollar, think about the dollar for a second. The dollar is really good at transmitting value across space, right? Like if I want to give you $1, it's really easy for me to give you $1 or to send you $1 through PayPal or whatever. So it's really good at transmitting value through space, but not time. Why not time? Because would you rather have $1 today or $1 a year from now? Today, right? Not in a year from now. Would you rather have $100 now or in 6 months? You'd rather have $100 now because you know that between now and the time you get that money in 6 months, it's going to be worth less than it is today. And so the dollar is good at transmitting value across space, but not time. Gold, on the other hand, so you might think, okay, what about gold? Well, gold is really good at transmitting value through time, right? Because if you had gold and somebody gave you gold 40 years ago, it's worth more now today than it was back then. And so if you wanted to transmit value to somebody in the future, you could use gold, and that would be an okay way to transmit value through time. But on the other hand, dollars, not so much. So gold is good at that. And then this is a quote from Robert Breedlove, who sent this tweet out back a few weeks ago, and I thought it was really good. Bitcoin is optimized to be almost perfect at transmitting value through space and time. Okay, so it's really easy to send it because it's digital, but it also can hold its value through time because it's limited. It's not going to be debased like the dollar is. Okay, so what are the risks? What are the risks of investing in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies? I think the first one, the most realistic, real risk of it is regulatory risk. And we saw that this week. I'm sure not everybody pays attention to the news like I do on cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, but Bitcoin was banned, or they talk about banning Bitcoin in India. Okay, and that caused a pretty big drop in the value of Bitcoin. It had just reached its all-time high of about 61,000, 62,000 and change. And then an announcement came out from India that said that they were going to ban it, and that caused the value to drop significantly. That could happen, and I think that's probably the most realistic, likely scenario for a big drop in value, is that you would have some kind of federal regulatory crackdown on it. But even that, I think, would just postpone it. I don't think it would kill it. They can't really kill it. China has tried to ban it multiple times and have been unable to. I feel like if China can't do it, it's probably not going to happen. So I don't think India is going to be able to do it either. I think an unlikely scenario that could cause Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies to fail would be a technological failure. I could go into more depth about this, but suffice it to say, I think the technology is pretty sound with cryptography and the way the network works. I think a technological failure is unlikely at this point, but it's always possible if Satoshi somehow created a backdoor that he could get into the network. I don't even think that's possible really, but some people have theorized that might be possible. He didn't really even actually build it. It's being built in a decentralized way. People are constantly making iterations of the technology, and it's evolving and developing fixes for problems that have come up in the past. So it's constantly being upgraded, constantly being worked on. But it's very difficult to change it too, because basically you have to have 85% of the nodes or the people that run the software agree to upgrade. And so it's really hard to change, but the changes that happen are normally pretty good. But some good changes don't happen because of that too, mainly for scaling. One I guess existential threat to Bitcoin would be if the United States government decided to be fiscally responsible. because then exactly that if the United States government or other governments around the world decided, hey, you know what, we're just going to adopt the same monetary policy as Bitcoin, then yes, Bitcoin would become. I don't think that's likely though. So, there are a lot of other things that'll get us before that actually happens. A certain risk though is volatility, like I've already talked about in the disclaimer part. Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies are very volatile, and so that should kind of cause you to be careful with what you invest in, should you choose to invest in it at all, which I'm not saying you should. So there will be volatility, just because whenever there is a new contender for a world reserve currency or a world reserve asset, if you have something that's competing to be that, there's going to be a period of volatility before it becomes that. Okay, so it's competing to be a risk-off asset. So, and it won't be a risk-off asset until it wins. And when it wins, then it will be a risk-off asset, and the volatility will drop significantly. But as long as there's volatility in Bitcoin, that means it hasn't quite won yet, and therefore, you're going to have a higher expected return. Doesn't mean you'll always realize that higher expected return, but there will be volatility. We have a question from the audience.
What do you mean by risk-off asset?
Okay, yeah, risk-off asset means it's like fixed income bonds. You guys understand that, but it's a risk-off asset, an asset that doesn't have a significant amount of risk. Fixed income, cash, things like that would be considered risk-off assets. Okay, and so that's what Bitcoin is competing to be. And as I said earlier, again, if you think about money is just an idea. It's a construct that we have in our head, and certain things are going to fill that void in our head to act as money. Okay. And for some people throughout history, it's been gold, and it's been other things. And Bitcoin is competing right now to occupy that place in our minds as money, as a medium of exchange that is able to transmit value through space and time. Okay, and so it's different than an investment, right? So it is an investment in the broadest sense, but really, it's what it's competing to be is not really an investment; it's a reserve. It's competing to be a reserve asset. Common misconceptions about Bitcoin. One of the common misconceptions about Bitcoin is that it's too expensive. We would call this unit bias. We talk about this a lot in some groups I'm in. A lot of people think Bitcoin right now is $58,000 and change. They think, oh, that's too expensive. I can't afford a Bitcoin. Well, maybe not, but you can buy $10 worth of it. You can buy $20 worth of it. You can buy $1 worth of it if you want. So if you have the proper platform, you can buy a very small amount of it. But a lot of people will look at the price and think, oh, that's too expensive. I can't afford that. And that's just not true. Again, if you've only got 21 million of something and you've got 7 billion people on planet Earth, if everybody wants one, they can't have one. If you divided the all 21 million Bitcoin over the world population, everybody could only have like 0.0023 or something like that of it. I don't know what the exact percentage is right now, but it's a very small fraction of one if everybody had an equal amount. And so it's 7 billion potential customers chasing after 21 million. And so it can't be, there can't be more than, everybody can't have one. It's just not going to work that way because of the supply. So there's significant supply restrictions on Bitcoin, but that doesn't mean that's not a problem. You can buy small parts of one, and that's okay. And again, it can be broken up into 100 million pieces. And so right now, to get 1 million satoshis or 1/100th of a Bitcoin, it costs about $500. If you got 1/1000th of a Bitcoin, it would be $58. If you got 1/10,000th of a Bitcoin, it'd be $5.80 approximately. And so I wouldn't. It's not a problem. It's not a huge problem that you would that it's $58,000 per Bitcoin because you can just buy a small amount of it. Let's see. The next one, drugs and illicit behavior. Okay, so there's a big misconception that most of the activity on the Bitcoin network is used for drugs and other illicit behavior on the internet. Okay, early on that was true. Okay, because people had a misconception about what Bitcoin was. People thought, oh, this is magic internet money. It's completely, I'm completely my identity is completely obscured by this. It can't be traced. All that. That's not true. So. Bitcoin is unique in that it has a public blockchain, which means that every transaction that's ever happened on the Bitcoin network, you can go back and look at it. You can see every transaction that's ever happened on the Bitcoin network, all the way back to the very first one. And so it's not used for drugs and illicit behavior much. The main medium of exchange that's used for drugs and illicit behavior is by far 98% of it, in America at least, is done with the US dollar. Cash. So, there's a small amount. They estimate somewhere in the very low single percentages, 1 to 3% of the Bitcoin activity is actually illicit activity. So, another common misconception about Bitcoin is that it's not backed by anything. It's not backed by anything physical. Kind of, but it kind of is too, because it has a huge network. It's got huge servers, huge server farms. It's got people behind it. It's got people's ideas behind it. There's all kinds of backing to Bitcoin that's not necessarily all physical. In fact, the most valuable parts of it, I think, are not physical. It's the ideas that Bitcoin and the code of Bitcoin itself that makes it what it is, which is a great currency, a great reserve asset. So people will say it's not backed by anything, like there's no gold, there's no gold backing, or there's no, like we've had in the U.S. in the past. We were founded on a gold standard, but the exchangeability was broken, and no longer are we on the gold standard. We just have fiat currency. The U.S. dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government, whatever that means, whatever that's worth. You take that and 50 cents to get a Coke, but it's not backed by anything. Yes, nothing physical, no physical commodity, but it's backed by a network, it's backed by people, it's backed by human capital, it's backed by ingenuity, it's backed by huge resources that people have put into it. Every time somebody puts money into it, that adds to the energy store of what Bitcoin is. It adds to the idea, again, of what Bitcoin is as a money, as a medium of exchange. And so, yes, it's not backed by a commodity, but it is backed by a lot of things that I think are good. Some people will say it's bad for the environment, okay? And so what this argument is that, you've got all these servers out there that are mining Bitcoin, and that's what the people that create Bitcoin and uphold the Bitcoin network are. They're called miners, and they use lots of equipment to uphold the network, servers, server farms, huge processors in big storage buildings. And they'll say, well, it takes a lot of electricity to run the network. Well, I work at a bank. I know how much energy is used to run a bank, And if you multiply that across all the banks in the world and think about the energy consumption of the US dollar versus Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin is a tiny, tiny fraction of that. And if you look at it worldwide, it's even smaller. And so if Bitcoin's bad because of the electricity consumption, then the dollar is a million times worse. So to me, that's not a good criticism of Bitcoin. Some people are concerned that it would be the one world currency. And, like there's, people that believe that at some point we're going to all have one currency and that's a bad thing. And I think that could be true, but it's not going to be Bitcoin, because Bitcoin can't be, again, controlled by a centralized authority. There's nobody that can take your Bitcoin from you. There's nobody that can shut you out of the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin doesn't care what color you are. It doesn't care what you believe. It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care about anything except, do you have the keys to your wallet? Do you have your password? And do you have access to the internet? If you do, then you can transact on the Bitcoin network. That's all that's required. You don't have to sign a statement of belief or faith or anything like that, because Bitcoin is completely agnostic when it comes to any kind of value propositions about anything else. It's just code. That's all it is. And nobody can shut you out of it. And so I would say that Bitcoin is the anti-one world currency. The one world currency would be one where if they don't like you, they can shut down your bank account, or they can shut down your PayPal account, or they can keep you from getting an account, a bank account in Florida or whatever. So how do you buy Bitcoin? So this is how you can buy Bitcoin. Here's some places that are, again, this is not a recommendation. I can't vouch specifically for any of these, but these are the big players and the easiest ways you can get it. Probably the biggest exchange in America is Coinbase. I've used Coinbase since the beginning. They're the first place I ever bought Bitcoin. Gemini is another exchange, a big one. The Winklevoss twins, y'all may have heard of them. They're the ones that own that from the movie The Social Network. Early founders of Facebook. Kraken is another one that's good. For simplicity, PayPal, I think, is probably the easiest one. If you got a PayPal account, you have access to buy Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies on there. Bitcoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, and Ripple, I think. Is Ripple on PayPal? I can't remember. But anyway, PayPal is the easiest probably way to get it. If you don't have any kind of apps, you can actually get exposure to Bitcoin in your brokerage account. And the best way right now that I know of, not financial advice, is GBTC is one way you can get it. It's Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And then there are some other ones. Bitwise has some funds that are available that can give you exposure to it. And then MicroStrategy is a stock that has a huge amount of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And so, those are three funds that you could use, two funds and one stock actually that you could use to have exposure to it. Again, not financial advice. I'm not saying you should do any of that, but those are ways you can have access or exposure to Bitcoin in particular.